early bird catches the worm. And in this particular case, the worm is worthwhile, original, rememberable, and memorable nuggets that you'll get this morning in terms of our CLE presentation. We have 5 excellent speakers here for you this morning. We're going to get right to it. Our first speaker this morning is Patrick Getzinger. Pat is a partner with the Gunderson Palmer firm here in Rapid City. He's also our state bar president and is going to be speaking with us about the importance of pro bono in our practices. Patrick?
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for that introduction, Craig. When Craig asked me to do this back in March, it looked like a much more brighter idea than it did about 1 o'clock last night in President Hofer's hospitality room after having spent the evening dancing to the great Minneapolis band called Dirty Word. So I'm happy to see that some of you folks came directly from President Hofer's President-elect Hofer candidates hospitality room straight to the early bird session this morning. So thank you for being here with me. Well, literally translated, pro bono publico means for the good of the people. In our profession, it means legal services performed free of charge for the public good. There's a statistic that says at least 40% of the low and moderate income households experience a legal problem each year. Yet studies show the collective legal aid to meet those needs meets only 20% of those legal needs of low and moderate income folks. The fact is that every lawyer has a professional responsibility and ethical responsibility to provide free legal services for the good of the people. So much so that the obligation to provide pro bono services has been codified in the Professional Rules of Responsibility 6.1 and codified in the lawyer's oath. In your materials, you'll see that the Professional Rule of Responsibility 6.1 is recited. The last line of the lawyer's oath that each and every one of us took says, "I will never reject, from any consideration personal to myself, the cause of the defenseless or oppressed, or delay any person's cause for lucre or malice." So what we have before us is a moral and ethical responsibility as attorneys to provide pro bono legal services to low and moderate income people. I want to review with you some statistics that have come about to reflect what South Dakota's response has been to providing pro bono services. We have 3 legal services entities in South Dakota. We have the BARS program called Access to Justice, we have East River Legal Services, and we have Dakota Plains Legal Services. They work in a coordinated effort. They have separate funding sources, separate staffs, and they all rely on pro bono volunteers to provide services to the low and moderate income individuals. In the Access to Justice program, we have 318 attorneys signed up for that program, which is an outstanding number for the size of bar that we have. There's an additional 78 pro bono attorneys signed up through Dakota Plains Legal Services and East River Legal Services. The State Bar also has a program called the Modest Means Program, and I'll talk about that in a second, but we have 58 attorneys signed up for that program. I asked for a breakdown of the demographics associated with those 318 volunteers. And it's interesting to me to find that the demographics pretty much track what the demographics are of our bar, the makeup of our bar. 37% of those volunteers are from large firms, 24% are from small firms, and 38.7% are from solo firms. 63.6% of those numbers are from East River. The West are from West River. 69.7% are male, 30.3% are female. 72.7% are considered veteran lawyers. 27.3% are considered young lawyers. And the challenge that I laid out in one of my columns is for each of those demographic areas to do better, to have more attorneys sign up for the pro bono or modest means program and provide pro bono service. And that's the challenge that we lay out in a joint plea that went out from the Chief Justice, myself, the co-chairs of the Legal Services Committee for the State Bar. And we need to increase the numbers that we have participating in our pro bono programs in order to meet the legal needs that we have in South Dakota for low and moderate income people. We also have other pro bono projects in South Dakota that I just want to give you a brief whirlwind tour of. The Second Circuit has a protection order project. And the plea went out this last winter for lawyers to take protection order hearings on a pro bono basis, and it was very successful in doing that. The Sikangu Oyekti Bar in Indian Country also has an active pro bono program in Indian Country, and we're very proud of the gap that they're filling in relation with Dakota Plains Legal Services to provide pro bono services in Indian Country. The Sixth Circuit system has a fantastic system of rotating attorneys taking their turn and taking pro bono cases in the Sixth Circuit. And that's a model that I recommend that smaller circuits take a look at emulating in their circuit. There's also the R.D. Hurd Law School pro bono program that involves law students and sets the culture and sets the tone for pro bono service in our law students. As I mentioned, we also have the Modest Means program, and that was recently adopted this past fall by the Bar Commissioners, which provides for low-income, modest means legal services to those that can afford to pay a small fee. So an individual may not qualify for pro bono services through Dakota Plains, ERLS, or Access to Justice, and as a matter of pride, they would be prepared to pay a small fee. We have a Modest Means panel where lawyers can sign up through the website links that we have on the State Bar webpage to participate in the Modest Means program, where you would be on a panel to take in your area a case for an individual that would qualify for the Modest Means program, in return expecting a small fee. And there's more information on that program through the website links that we have available. As I mentioned, we have 58 lawyers signed up for that program, and we see those numbers increasing every quarter. Other things that are happening out in the pro bono world relate to the fact that we have a project ongoing here in our circuit in Rapid City where lawyers are coming together to offer pro bono business services. They're looking at a model for providing pro bono business services to small startups that might qualify. The Access to Justice program also offers mentors in domestic relation cases. The largest civil need for our pro bono clients is in the domestic relations area. And I'm not a domestic relations lawyer, but I'm willing to take a domestic relations case because I have a mentor that's made available through Access to Justice to assist me in taking that case and seeing it through to the end. We also offer the Emeritus Pro Bono Program, and the Emeritus Pro Bono Program allows those retired attorneys who have given up their malpractice insurance to provide pro bono services and receive coverage for malpractice through the Emeritus Program. And it's also worth noting that all the volunteers, all the pro bono attorneys through Access to Justice are also covered by the malpractice coverage obtained for Access to Justice. We know in talking with our friends in the court that there's a significant concern about pro se litigants clogging the court system. And part of my practice involves just appearing in court to obtain signatures, and And what happens is I get put on the calendar where the judge is just on the heels of dealing with pro se litigants. And it's an experience that if you haven't seen it, you should pay attention to it, because it's a very frustrating thing for our judges and for our clerks. And so we've come together with the UJS system, with Chief Justice Gilbertson, and what is occurring is that a legal services summit is being called and will be held in the Capitol this fall, where all the representatives of the various legal services committees and organizations are coming together to talk about short-range, mid-range, and long-range plans for legal services and meeting the needs of legal services in South Dakota. I'm also pleased to announce that the Access to Justice program has a contract with the UJS to provide pro se clinics throughout all the circuits in South Dakota. In this past spring, our young lawyers really stepped up to the plate to conduct these pro se clinics. This is a model that the UJS, in conjunction with the Access to Justice group of the State Bar, thought would help address the pro se litigant issue in our court and give some guidance on being able to file your own papers for a divorce action or whatever the case might be. And there's been spotty success in terms of turnout, but as the program grows, as the word gets out, as it becomes more institutionalized on the calendar, those pro se litigants can count on the fact that there will be a clinic sometime in the near future that they can participate in and attend, and cut down on the confusion associated with getting the proper documents filed to start an action, conclude an action, or pursue an action. I just want to also give you an idea of what's going on the national level with regard to funding, and also bring it back down to a state level. At the national level, we're all aware that legal services entities have received significant cuts in their funding. In some cases, it's anywhere from 25 to 35% of their budgets being cut because of the cuts at the federal level. At the state level, the revenue dollars available to support legal services are shrinking as well. You'll hear more at this bar convention about a discussion of how to meet the need at the state level to raise the dollars available through the bar and the Bar Foundation for support of legal services in South Dakota. We also have a source of funding through the state legislature. We have an Equal Access to Justice Commission that produces about $75,000 to $85,000 a year that is dedicated to legal services, that comes off of an increase in filing fees that was passed 2 legislative sessions ago. Attempts to raise the small claims filing fee in order to provide additional funds for that commission have been frustrated as a result of a very significant lobbying effort. So we may call upon you in the future to help in getting that passed through. The other thing that I want to alert you to make sure that we are very aware of this out in the other parts of the country. Some courts, some bars, as a condition of maintaining your license to practice law, are requiring mandatory pro bono reporting. And we haven't gone there yet. We haven't had that discussion yet. And the reason we haven't is because we believe that our members will step up and do this voluntarily. But you can imagine the paperwork associated with mandatory reporting of pro bono service hours. And the mandatory requirement is 50 hours annually. And if you don't meet those 50 hours annually, if you can't document your pro bono service, then there will be an assessment, an economic assessment against that member that must be paid as a condition for them to keep their license. So the response in other parts of the country have been very significant in terms of generating and motivating and giving incentive for pro bono service. But we here in South Dakota take things a little bit differently and think that we can meet that need just on a volunteer basis. So I encourage you to take a look at the resources that are available through the State Bar's webpage, through the Access to Justice webpage. Those sites are in your material. Sign up if you haven't, and help us provide legal services to those that can't otherwise receive them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. The primary job of the chair at the CLEs put on by the State Bar of South Dakota is to ensure that we garner and have speakers who have good information to present to our membership. And our next speaker and I were having dinner, and I mentioned the fact that I was chair for this particular CLE, and she mentioned that she thought a really good topic would be talking about websites that would help you do your job, and my response was, thank you for volunteering. Our next speaker is Jane Fifley, who is a partner with the Lynn Jackson firm in Rapid City, South Dakota. She practices primarily in the employment arena and is here to talk to you about some websites that will help you do your job. Jane?
Thank you.
Stay here so you can get the camera too.
All right. Thank you. I don't want you to have any idea that I'm an expert IT person, and as Rob Anderson told me, at least I'm not as, how was that, not quite as dumb, or he was not quite as dumb as me. I think that was the... Anyway, these are, I did start thinking about it because a sole practitioner called me and we were visiting about he needed some advice on something, and I said, you know, gave him the name of the case, and he said, well, can you send that to me? And I said, well, why don't you look it up on Google Scholar? And he said, I don't know what Google Scholar is. Now, I presume those of you that are, well, let's see, it's a little different than mine. Hang on here. Well, control, there we are. Anyway, he didn't know what Google Scholar was, and I thought, you know, it's super helpful. And so those of you probably that are under 30 think this is kind of silly for those of us that are over 50, but it's so easy to use. You can see where the legal documents, there's articles and legal documents. A case I've been really interested in lately is Hosanna Tabor, and it's United States Supreme Court has recognized a ministerial exception for any kind of employment-related, almost any kind of employment-related matter. So if you are a church and you fire an employee, they claim disability discrimination and they fall within this minister capacity, they don't have to, I mean, you can't be sued. So anyway, I like this case, and so I'm really interested in what happens in it. It doesn't have page numbers like you would get on Westlaw, but sometimes you just want to look at the case and see what it is. But what's really helpful, look at all these are hot links, so I can click to those and it takes me right to that case. I think that's really handy. The other thing you can do with these, you can see how it's been cited. And over here on the right-hand side, here, this is a very recent case, and that'll tell you the level of discussion. So the 3 bars indicates more discussion. If you are writing a brief and you find a case that, let's see if I can find it here for you. Let's say I want to follow this case. I can then create an email alert, and so I get emails whenever this one updates. And I just think it's really, it's cheap, it's fast. Here's where, if I want to create the email alert, I click right there, and I put my email address in here, and then I just hit the alert, and it will send me every time it updates. So if you find a case you really love, and you don't want to do it on Westlaw or LexisNexis because you're paying for it, you can do it here. And when you start the brief, you find the case, it'll just keep updating as often as you like. So let's say you don't know the name of the case you want. You can do this advanced search. Now, I'm going to do this because I want you to go home and try it yourself. But there's a very interesting case out of Montana that a fellow was mauled by a grizzly bear, and he happened to have smoked marijuana right before it, and the question was whether he could be covered. And if you really enjoy interesting and well-written opinions, you're going to want to read this case. All right, now, because I didn't select articles, legal documents, it flipped over to articles. So you can see on the left-hand side how I can modify that. Here's the case, Hopkins versus Uninsured Employers Fund. So search for grizzly bear and marijuana, and I promise you will really enjoy reading this case. Now, so that's the advanced search. You can also, one day I was working on a First Amendment case, and I was interested in what Judge Schreier has to say about, I wanted to know every case she had written that concerned the First Amendment. And so I can narrow it down, and I can put in her as the author. So when it says articles authored by, that sounds really awkward, but that's just the way Google uses it. But notice, well, of course it worked really perfectly at home. Let me come back. There she is. All right, so I happen to like this Jarman v. Barnt case, and so if I want to follow that, I can. I can also see how it's been cited since then, and it will give you all related documents. And I just find it a very quick, helpful, cheap way to get some research done. So I would commend that to you. The next one I want to show you, the other thing I wanted, because of time I can't go through all of them, but for example, let's say you wanted to, not just legal things, but you wanted to see every speech President Obama gave this year. You can search for Obama speech 2012, and it will pull up all of his speeches, or Mitt Romney or anybody you're interested in. If you want an article on jury selection, you can put that in, and Google Scholar will pull that up for you. It's a wealth of information. Cornell also has a very cheap, free way to search, and you can see all the collections over here. It's pretty easy to use. You can search up here through the entire, what they call the Legal Information Institute. You can search in these individual ones, and if you just put the statute in, you can get it. If you're not sure of the statute, you can think of different phrases that might be in there. And so, again, if you don't want to pay for the research. Same thing with the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations. This, again,